What if I told you that during the American Civil War, one side used hot air balloons for spying, that Abraham Lincoln got into a fistfight with his own generals, and that the war's first real casualty was caused by a guy's overenthusiastic cannon salute? Welcome to Mind Flix, where history isn't dusty and boring, it's weird, wild, and full of stories your school textbooks completely skipped. Stick with me, because one of the last facts on this list will flip everything you thought you knew about the Civil War upside down. Today, we're diving into 10 unbelievable Civil War facts your history teacher probably never mentioned. We're not talking about the big battles like Gettysburg or Antietam. We're talking about the odd, the forgotten, and the downright bizarre moments, like the time soldiers literally stopped fighting to play baseball together. And wait until you hear the fact about how one battle was decided by bees. Yes, bees. That's coming up later, so don't go anywhere. The war started with a party gone wrong. The very first casualty of the Civil War. It wasn't on a battlefield. It was at Fort Sumter in April 1861. Here's what happened. After the Union surrendered the fort, the soldiers were allowed to fire a ceremonial cannon salute before leaving. Sounds harmless, right? Well, one cannon misfired, exploded, and killed a soldier instantly. The war hadn't even properly started, and already tragedy struck from pure accident. That soldier, Private Daniel Howe, wasn't killed by enemy fire, meaning technically the war's first fatality was self-inflicted. Think drones are a modern invention? Nope. During the Civil War, the Union had a fleet of hot air balloons to spy on Confederate troop movements. A professional balloonist named Thaddeus Lowe convinced Lincoln that balloons could hover miles up and send coded messages down to the ground. These balloons were actually tethered to the ground by telegraph wires, so spies could report live, in real time. In 1861, that's basically Civil War live streaming. The Great Snowball Fight of 1864. Not every day of war was blood and mud. In the winter of 1864, Confederate soldiers in Virginia staged what became the largest snowball fight in American history. Thousands of troops hurling snow instead of bullets. Morale was low, food was scarce, and boredom was dangerous. A massive snow battle was a way to stay sane. It got so intense that officers had to break it up before it turned into a real fight, the real fuel of the Union Army. Forget bullets and bayonets. Union soldiers swore the real weapon was coffee. The average soldier drank more than a liter a day. Some troops roasted beans in frying pans, others boiled grounds in their canteens. Confederate soldiers, cut off from coffee imports, tried to make substitutes from roasted peanuts, okra seeds, and even acorns. That wasn't before the war. The U.S. Army experimented with using camels to carry supplies across the Southwest. When the war broke out, these camels were kind of forgotten. Some were sold, others just wandered off into the desert. There are actual reports of wild camels being spotted in the American Southwest decades later, leftovers from this bizarre military experiment. The bee battle. Here's one you'll never forget. In 1862, during a skirmish in Mississippi, Confederate soldiers accidentally disturbed a giant beehive. The bees swarmed, stinging everyone, friend and foe alike. Both sides scattered in chaos, and the battle basically ended right there. Locals later nicknamed the place Bee Creek, and it stayed on maps for decades. A baseball game between enemies. In the middle of the war, soldiers from both sides occasionally called unofficial truces. One of the strangest? A pickup game of baseball in the no-man's land between Union and Confederate lines. They played, laughed, then went back to fighting the next day. Baseball's popularity exploded after the war, thanks in part to soldiers teaching the game to each other during downtime. Lincoln's near duel. Long before the Civil War, Abraham Lincoln almost fought a duel with swords over an insult in a newspaper. By the time he was president, he had learned to handle conflict with words, mostly. But during the war, tensions ran so high that he reportedly had a heated physical altercation with one of his own generals. Lincoln was a skilled wrestler in his youth. He won about 300 matches. Submarines were already a thing. Yep, the Civil War had submarines. The Confederate vessel H.L. Hunley was the first submarine to sink an enemy warship in combat. In 1864, it rammed an explosive into the USS Housatonic, sinking it. The Hunley also sank, with its entire crew aboard. No one knows exactly why. Theories range from oxygen depletion to shock waves from its own blast. The war's last shot wasn't in America. Here's the mind-bender. The final shot of the Civil War wasn't fired in Virginia or Georgia. It happened off the coast of Alaska. A Confederate raider ship, the CSS Shenandoah, kept attacking Union ships in the Pacific even after the war officially ended, because they hadn't heard the news. The crew only stopped when they finally got word. In England. Months later. Alright, here's the one that changes how you think about the Civil War entirely. Most people believe the war was fought entirely in the US, but in 1861, the Confederacy actually tried to get international recognition and military support from countries like Britain and France. Here's the kicker. If Britain had sided with the South, the United States as we know it today might not exist. One intercepted letter, the Trent Affair, almost did push Britain into the war. If that had happened, we might be talking about a North America split into two permanent nations. So today, we've seen coffee as a weapon, balloons as spy tools, baseball in no man's land, battles stopped by bees, and even the last shot fired in Alaska. The Civil War wasn't just about strategy and sacrifice. It was also about strange human moments that remind us history is made by real people, living real lives, sometimes in the weirdest ways imaginable. So here's my question for you. Which of these facts shocked you the most? And do you think there are still hidden stories from the Civil War waiting to be uncovered? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you love stories that make you rethink history, hit like, subscribe, and turn on that bell so you don't miss the next deep dive here on Mind Flix. Until next time, keep your mind open and your curiosity alive.